To Monday and today's Silicon Slopes Town Hall. It's Monday. Can you believe it? Here we go. Another week. Thanks for joining us. I want to give a quick update before we start this town hall, just on the cadence of these town halls. Starting this week, we're going to do 2 a week instead of 3 a week. As all of us have learned, this is a marathon, not a sprint. To us, it makes sense to give as much detail as possible in these town halls, as well as the Silicon Slopes Lives we're doing. But doing these every Monday and Wednesday instead of every Monday, Wednesday, and Friday makes a lot of sense moving forward. If we need to have any special town halls or lives, we will. But I'm sure so many of you are tired of seeing me. I'm tired of looking at myself in here. And so every Monday and Wednesday for the foreseeable future is how we're going to do this. The time will remain the same, Monday, Wednesday at 4 p.m. And like I mentioned, we will, if we need to do a special town hall, or we're going to continue to do the lives we've been doing during this time. So we're just basically cutting out the Friday town hall at this point. We have some very exciting testutah.com updates that we're going to talk about here in a second. But to start, I wanted to bring on Cotopaxi CEO Davis Smith, who has been working on the One Utah initiative and the One Utah t-shirt to give us an update. Davis, tell us how it's going.
Yeah, great to be here with you again, and excited to report on some good successes with the shirt. We sold a few thousand of them at this point. First of all, a huge shout out to 1-800-CONTACTS. Those guys got a shirt for everyone on their team. Traeger as well. Also a huge thank you to Qualtrics and the Utah State Legislature, who've also bought shirts for their teams, along with a lot of other small businesses that have done the same. And a lot of individuals, tons and tons of individuals who have gone on the site to buy these shirts. Remember, 100% of the proceeds are going to Slope Serves for this $5 million goal that we have. Just a reminder that we're a small business. We've been impacted pretty deeply by this crisis. I know many of those that are watching have also. This is a time for us to step up and to try to give back to our community along the way. And a lot of us don't have the same resources as maybe these big unicorns, but it doesn't mean we can't contribute in some way. And so what better way than to do this by getting shirts for your team? We'll send them to their homes remotely. Also, if you have a larger order, 100 or more, we're happy to customize the shirt. So we can do the shirt and the print and the colors of your team. It's a fun way to kind of rally your team around something that's bigger and important. So just a huge thanks to Clint and all the support that the community has given to this project. This is a cause worth supporting, and it's one of the reasons that makes Utah so special.
Davis, this is absolutely incredible. Everyone go here. This link is also on the slopeserves.com website. You can get to it from there. But highly encourage and highly recommend folks get these shirts. It's making a big difference. And thank you, Davis, for everything that you're doing here. It's unbelievable.
My pleasure. Thanks.
Okay, we're going to we have some incredible updates around the testutah.com initiative. And we're going to get to that here in a moment. But first, I want to give everyone a quick update on where we're at in terms of current conditions. What was released today by the Health Department and the Coronavirus Task Force. Current known cases is 1,675. Known deaths is 13. Total number tested is 33,394. That's a jump of 9,146 people tested. And 2,500 people were tested just yesterday alone. And with that, I want to go to the man spearheading so much of testutah.com, the founder and chairman of Inside Sales, now Zant, Dave Elkington. Dave, give us an update.
Yeah, thank you. Can you see my screen?
Yeah, we can see you.
Perfect. All right, you can see the Test Utah Initiative screen.
Oh, we can just see you. No, you're gonna want to share your screen here.
All right. Sorry, guys. Stand by.
You're all right.
While we do that, I'll give a little bit of an update. Actually, I probably can't multitask on this, so let's try this. We're almost there.
Yeah, no worries. Take your time. We're not live or anything, Dave. It's no big deal.
Cool. I'm glad no one minds. I'll tell you what, I'm going to talk through it because I don't want to waste everybody's time. So let me just talk through it. It does not seem to be allowing me to do this.
There you go. We can see it now. This is perfect.
Okay, so look, I want to do a quick overview of what this initiative is. I'm going to actually give a very tactical update. It's been an amazing 3 or 4 days, frankly, since we gave an update. Typically, Mark Newman is the guy. He is working on his day job, so he recruited me. Mark is the guy. I just support the guy. So Test Utah, it's an initiative that is really this partnership with the state of Utah, with Silicon Slopes, with dozens and dozens of different organizations. And we have probably 300 people who are involved in this. But it really is the brainchild of this organization coming together. Why is it important? And you've heard this. Why is it important to do testing? We want to get all of Utah back to normal life. And we can't do that until we actually feel comfortable with interacting with other people. So this initiative is to get us out of our caves, get us out of our, let's make sure everybody showers every day again. Let's make sure actually we're back to being human beings. And we can do this when we're confident we don't have the virus. And so that's its objective. Just to remind everybody, it's a 3-step process. Number 1, the assessment. We've built in partnership with the state, in partnership with, everybody's involved in this, the largest health assessment ever done in the state of Utah. And you're going to see some of the numbers, they're staggering. So the value of the assessment is this tells the state where there's hotspots, where there's people clustering. It tells us where we should set up mobile testing stations. So the assessment is super critical. Next, we're setting up roughly 10 to 15 mobile testing stations. And the objective is to get these testing stations in the communities. And so you're going to see where we're opening up new communities. The last one is tracing. Once we identify positive people with the virus, it allows us to identify who they've interacted with, be able to isolate them, provide treatment, and make sure we squash this bug very, very quickly. So that's the challenge. Last week, Mark shared the testing 1, 2, 3 challenge. If you haven't done it and you're listening, go do it. All you have to do is record a 10 to 1 minute video on Instagram or Twitter or TikTok or however you do your stuff, and basically share why testing is important to you and what normal life means to you. Do it, tag 5 people. So spread the word, get everybody assessed. Okay, let's talk about let's get into the nitty gritty of things.
Hang on, Dave, just real quick, because I want to double click on that point. Can you explain to everyone watching why it's so critical for everyone to take the assessment, whether or not they're even experiencing symptoms?
Yeah, no, so it's good to double click into this. There are over 3 million people in the state of Utah. We don't know where the virus is. It's going to go throughout all of Utah. So if you're in a community, like my mom, I love her, but she's like, okay, we're done, right? And I'm like, we're not done. And she's like, no, I think we're done. We're not done. This is going to go through every community in Utah, and everybody is going to get they're going to know someone who is sick. And so what the assessment allows us to do is to know in real time where these hotspots are growing and where we need to provide testing, where we need to provide hospital services, where we need to provide medication. And then we're able to take extrapolation there's a correlation between the people who take the assessment but aren't positive and the people who are positive. So if you think, we're able to say small communities in Northeast Utah are in fact seeing a spread of this, well, we can then as a state react very, very quickly. So we need all 3 million people to take the assessment. Now there's a new feature we're just adding. In fact, it's hot off the press. I think we're releasing it tonight. Once you've taken the assessment, you can also opt into a daily check-in, which means the assessment's about 5 to 7 minutes long. the check-in is like a 1 to 2 minute check-in, and it's like you don't have to do most of it. You get the email, and you just do a quick health update. Have my symptoms increased? Is my temperature up? We've got a bunch of data scientists who've built an algorithm that looks at the trend of your symptoms. And the thing about this virus is if you catch it quickly, then you can avoid a lot of the pain that's associated with it. So this trending capability with these daily check-ins will allow us to reach out to you if the algorithm suggests that, in fact, because you may be negative, but you may have a cold or you may have some other symptoms. If it immediately begins to trend, we've seen this go from green to red in 24 or 48 hours. This allows the state leadership to be able to identify this and then reach out to you very quickly. So that's a new feature that's actually being added to the system. So not only should you take it, you should actually opt into the daily check-in and take it every day. And not only does it help you, it helps the entire state of Utah, because we're using your anonymized data to be able to look at trends and geographies and demographics and things like that.
Dave, as you've been talking here, we've gotten a few comments here on the chat that I think would be worthwhile for us to address. Someone sent in a message saying that their son took the assessment on Saturday, despite the fact that he had some respiratory issues a week and a half ago. The assessment told him not to get tested. This person says, this doesn't seem to mesh with the everyone should get tested message. I think people are still getting mixed messages. I'm going to take a first stab at this, Dave, and then you follow up here if I get something wrong. I think, everyone should get tested is our goal. We want all Utahns to be tested who want to be tested. That doesn't mean we can do that today. The assessment is still prioritizing those who have symptoms over those who do not. So I want to be very clear about that. And what our message is right now is we want everyone to take the assessment. We need everyone in the state to take the assessment. That does not mean everyone who takes the assessment will then move to testing. The goal, again, I want to be very clear, is every Utahn who wants to be tested can be tested. We've opened 2 sites, and Dave's going to talk about, additional sites that we're opening. We're not at the point yet with the resources with the state of Utah to test all Utahns. I wish we were. We're just not at this point, but that is the goal that testutah.com is trying to solve. So if you take the assessment and it tells you not to get tested, that's why it is prioritizing those who have symptoms to get tested first. Does that answer that, Dave? Is there anything you would add there?
The only thing that's perfect. The only thing I would add is don't just take it once. If you feel the next day that it's getting worse, take it again. And I would say, think like I mentioned this when we were speaking with the state. Think of this like a startup. We're still learning, so we don't know everything. If you feel like you need to be treated, talk to your primary care physician. Like, don't. If you think it's wrong, you better than everybody else knows you. Do something. Talk to your doctor. Go get looked at. Go get checked out. If you have respiratory issues, I would definitely go talk to your physician right away. So don't, just because the algorithm doesn't prioritize it, doesn't mean you don't have it. So that's number one. Number two, take it again tomorrow. Take it again the next day. If your symptoms continue to evolve, it may change. So the people who wrote the algorithm are, again, the University of Utah, the medical leaders here in the state, the state health department. There's lots of very smart people who are around the table developing this, but it's constantly evolving, and we're learning based off of the data. So again, this is a startup growing and learning. Trust your gut though. If you feel like you need to be treated, talk to your primary care physician. Like that, nothing else matters more than that.
That's exactly. And Dave, there's another question from the great Paige Checketts, who's doing incredible work at Utah Child Care Cooperative. I recommend everyone check that out and read some of the things that have come out over the past few days around the importance of childcare. Paige is asking if everyone in the household should take the test. I assume you're asking about the assessment page, but maybe you can clarify that here. She says, does everyone in the household take the test, or I assume the assessment, or just adults?
The answer is everybody should take the assessment.
Right.
Absolutely. And also, you, like I mentioned, don't just take it once. If you feel any different, if you get a sniffle or if you get some aches, take it again. That the assessment will recognize the pattern and be able to recommend action. So everybody take it and take it often.
And Dave, we keep getting this question. In fact, I think it's the number one question that we've gotten since we launched this thing, and that is, where does this data go when folks come on here and take the assessment? Who owns that data? Where does it go?
Yep, that's a really valuable question. So the data is stored. In fact, I'll walk you through the use case. In fact, this might be a good place to look at it.
Yeah.
This is how it works. This is how the entire process happens. You visit, you're feeling achy, you got a sniffle, you just don't feel good, or you just want to participate. All of the above. You go to testutah.com, you complete the assessment, and if the assessment suggests that you should be tested, then you select a testing location, date, and time. Now, once that's done, you go to the sample collection tent. Like the sample that's collected, it goes to the lab, and then you receive the results. Now, once you've completed, so that's the whole process. We're targeting a 48-hour turnaround from when the sample is collected till you get a notification in your email or in a text message that the results are ready. Now, we've had some that have taken 72 hours. So we're going to be super honest and very, very transparent with you. We're scrambling. We had a lot of demand. So our lab got a little bit backed up. So we are pushing. Now, the question on data, in the assessment, there's a profile set of data. Once you've put in your personal information and the assessment, the rest of the system has no access to that. I don't have access. I personally have no access to any personal information. Everybody becomes a barcode, or it's actually a QR code in this case. And the entire machinery is all anonymized. Now, when it's collected, it's collected in 128-bit encryption. So it's stored and it's collected securely. It's stored securely in a encryption at rest database. And then when the results are complete, this is delivered and pushed to the state database, where the results are securely passed on to that database. So nobody in this system, the state owns this infrastructure. We're helping deliver it. So
Right.
No one at Silicon Slopes has access to this data. No one in this infrastructure has access to your personal data. There are people that are working with the state to try and very quickly address hotspots, be able to make sure we're providing appropriate treatment. So, but that's where it belongs. So
Yeah. So to be super clear,
process. That's all.
Yeah, to be super clear, the state of Utah is the one who owns this data. They're the ones who get this data that comes directly to them. The system does use Qualtrics. This is another question I've gotten, Dave, a lot over the past 72 hours. The system uses Qualtrics, which is a local tech company. I believe that nearly every state in the country uses Qualtrics in some form or another. That's the software piece that is being used is Qualtrics, an incredible tech company. All of that's HIPAA compliant, all that type of stuff. But the state, that's the state's Qualtrics account. That's not Qualtrics running that data. That is the state of Utah and their Qualtrics account, and all of that that's just the software that's being used. And they, that all that data goes directly to the state of Utah. So I want to be very clear there. It is all of this data goes directly to the state health department.
Let's add one other thing. When this initiative is complete, we're going to purge our everything, and it only belongs to the state at that point. So we plan on completely deleting all of this information after this initiative is complete. This is your data. It belongs to you. The state's using it to try and help you and help the state become better and healthier. And so the system is HIPAA compliant. We're storing it, securely. We take this very, very seriously.
Dave, another question that we're getting here is, some people have taken the test and they have some of the symptoms, and testutah.com says they don't need a test. And so the question is, what level of symptoms are currently required to qualify for testing?
Honestly, I don't know that answer. I didn't actually write the algorithm. There are people smarter than me at the University of Utah, at the state health department. I believe there's 30 people that are involved that are very, very good at this to understand. And so it's not just simple as saying, hey, if I have congestion or constricted breathing, that means I go get a test. It could be some unique combination. So, and this is constantly evolving and getting more sophisticated and getting even more effective. And so, again, the thing I would say is, if you feel like you need to be tested, if you have, constrained breathing, it's look at the CDC website or look at the state website. Follow that guidance. If you really are concerned, you should see a primary care physician and go get looked at. This is just an additional service that is getting ramped up. So don't.
Yeah. And to be very clear, the assessment wasn't written by Silicon Slopes. It was written by the Utah Health Department and the University of Utah Health, and the Utah Health Department signed off on this assessment. So this is the Utah Health Department's assessment.
So we don't know that math. And it is, to be honest with you, I've looked at it. It is very sophisticated. There's a lot of nuances to it that to be honest with you, I don't understand.
All right. Yeah. Keep going, Dave.
So let me share some of the results. And these are staggering. And I'm going to share some feedback from other states and other governors who have looked at this. We've had over 51,000 assessments completed since last Thursday. We've already scheduled 2,000 appointments through the system. We've had about 1,500 people actually arrive at site. There is an abandonment rate. Some people schedule it and then I guess just get busy and forget about it or get cold feet. Being swabbed is not necessarily the most comfortable thing. And so maybe they get cold feet. We also test to make sure those kits get to the lab, and we've completed roughly 768 tests and provided responses. The difference between that 1,500 and the 768 is just, it takes a day or two to get everything processed. So there's a bit of a lag in the lab. And so every one of those 1,564 over the next day or two will receive, and this is as of an hour or two ago, they will receive the notification of the results of the test. So this is, again, these are staggering. We're averaging roughly somewhere between 300 and 500 new tests a day. And we're targeting 3,000 within the next probably week or two. Now let's talk about new locations that are coming up. We're adding a location this week. We're targeting, and again, as Mark said, we're going to be very open. And so we're pushing, but some of these may not happen. Some of these may slide into early next week. But right now we're pushing to get something up in the Heber area. This week, we're also targeting a new tent also put up in the South Ogden area. And as Mark mentioned last week, we're also looking at maybe next week, the Washington County area. And then also this week or early next, we're targeting the Salt Lake Airport. And each one of these locations can support 300 to 500 new tests a day. So you can see our goal as an organization, as Silicon Slopes, is to see if we can support roughly 2,500 to 3,000 new daily tests. And you can see how if we're supporting 500 per tent, we have one in Orem, one in Provo, we put one in Heber, one in South Ogden, one in Washington County, and the airport, we roughly should be able to achieve the goal. And let me just give you some anecdotes that can tell you why this stuff matters. I sat at a couple of the tents the last couple of days, and there are people, as we know, like if we talk to our family and friends, there are some people who are really sick and don't really know the right thing to do right now. So I shared with the governor, I saw a woman who came to the tent who was really sick and shared with the nurse and said, hey, look, I'm really struggling. I wasn't prompted to get a test. She didn't get the QR code, but she said, I'm really sick. And what the results told her to do is go to an ER. And she said, I just didn't feel like I should go to an ER yet. Like, I want to just get tested first. And so the nurse asked her, what her symptoms were. And she said, severely constrained breathing. She had a temperature of 102. She was really achy. She had the chill, like all of the symptoms. And the nurse said, you need to come to the ER right now. They brought her around, got her into the ER, and had her treated right away. So look, our goal is just to help our family members, right? I just want to make sure that if my mom has something or all of like, this is just to try and help. And what's kind of cool is it's starting to help people. We're seeing people get treatment that maybe otherwise didn't know that they could or they should. And that's the objective of this entire initiative, is just to help our neighbors and our family members and our kids and our friends. And it's beginning to work. So let me I did see a question, Clint, let me know, but we have one big announcement that we're excited to share today. We just secured it's a high throughput lab capacity. We're installing this as we speak. This is a highly robotic testing tool. There's two aspects of running a lab. You have the testing part and you have the RNA or DNA extraction. So you extract from the sample and you need to get the DNA out of it, basically. Once you have the DNA out, you replicate it and you put it in a test. This will allow us to do up to 8,000 potentially tests a day, which we would be considered the highest throughput private infectious disease lab in the country. No one is doing anything like this. And so we have an armada of volunteers, of people helping that have come up with this. This isn't me, this isn't Mark, this isn't Clint. We have wicked smart, brilliant people volunteering their time, working 18-hour days to try and solve this. Once we have this machine in place, this will open our throughput dramatically, and that'll really help us work toward what Clint was saying, which is really anybody who wants to be tested can be. We're not there yet. It won't even be this week or next week, but with this kind of improvement, it's coming very quickly. And let me share the last point I want to make, and then I'll hand back off to you, Clint. I've been talking to the governors all across the country, California, potentially Iowa, Idaho. Really, just what we're hearing is no one is solving this. This public-private partnership with volunteers, with the hospitals, with private companies, nothing like this is happening. We are breaking new ground. We're helping people at a rate that really no one else is. So it's pretty exciting to see. It's pretty exciting to see the entire community come together and solve this problem and really help Utah. So I don't know if you have any other questions, but that's what I was going to present, Clint.
Oh, that's awesome. And we're saying it takes 24 to 48 hours typically to get results, right? That was one of the questions. And just to be clear,
we've had a couple of days that it's been longer, and we'll email you if it's a little bit longer. We want to make sure we communicate, and we're learning this, but we're targeting 24 to 48 hours.
Right. And just a quick review, we've had over 51,000 people take the assessment. It's critical everyone take the assessment, everyone in your family, not just adults. We've had over 2,000 people schedule appointments at this point. Over 1,500 people have taken tests, and over 700 results so far. We're opening in South Ogden, Heber, and the Salt Lake Airport. The goal is over the next week or so, would you say, Dave?
Yep.
Over the next week. And the goal is currently 10 to 15 sites as quickly as we possibly can throughout the state of Utah, and possibly even more. I also want to shout out IHC, who announced 20 sites today. It's just unbelievable, the work that they're doing, as well as the University of Utah Health. The more testing that takes place in Utah, the better. For more information, please go to testutah.com, and please have everyone take these assessments. And now I want to move to Salt Lake County Mayor Jenny Wilson to get an update on what's happening in Salt Lake County. Mayor Wilson, how are you?
Well, I'm hanging in there. I appreciate the work you guys are doing, and it was great to hear that report from Dave, and want to give a shout out to everybody working on this. We're in this together, and yeah, I'm a little tired. We all are. I joke that in a few months when we come back, everyone's going to go out and I'm going to go in and rest and enjoy some indoor time. But boy, what a journey in 1 month. And I'm the wife of an entrepreneur, and we had our moments when he was getting his business up and running, and we're past that now, and I'm happy about that. But I know many of you that have dialed in today are doing your best to keep your companies going. And it's rough, no matter in even the best of times, to get a company up and running. So I guess, coming onto Silicon Slopes, I'm here to talk about the work I'm doing at the command center, but I, at a personal level, recognize the journey many of you are going through right now. And we're going to do our best in government in the appropriate way with partnerships to help out. And I read the emails coming in from our DC lobbyist about funds that may trickle down. We're doing our own thing at Salt Lake County, but I just want to recognize the work you guys are doing and to give back when so much is on your plate right now with your own respective businesses and efforts. It's really appreciated.
Thank you. Tell us about this hotline that you're launching.
Hotline, sure. I'm going to bring up the phone number here since. Okay, so we have a business relief hotline. The number is 385-468-4011. And we started a business economic recovery kind of unit of our command team. And we have several people working on that right now, looking at opportunities. And what we realized is people just needed good information. We're working on some real direct initiatives for Salt Lake County to take on, but we recognize that we can be a conduit of information. So we have a great team of people. They rotate through shifts. I'm told by the leader of this team that when they get a phone call, people are really have a lot of anxiety. And by the end of the call, they feel like they're at least on a path to get some answers. So I appreciate our team working on this, and hopefully we're able to provide some comfort and some information. And it's been up and running for about a week now, and we're getting a lot of calls, and I think it's a good service. So take advantage if you have questions or know people who may.
Mayor Wilson, I have some questions for you because I'm sure you're following this debate around whether Utah County should issue a stay-at-home order similar to what Salt Lake County did about it. How long ago did you do that?
We could go Sunday, so we're day 8 or 7, day 7. Yeah.
So Salt Lake County issued that. Utah County has not. Up to this point, the state has left it up to the counties to make this decision. Have you seen, do you think what's the difference between Salt Lake County and Utah County right now? One operating under a stay-at-home order, one operating under basically the stay home directive from the governor. Can you talk about the difference there and what your recommendation would be?
Well, throughout this, what I've tried to do is rely on data and information best that we can find it. And I remember we kicked this off actually a calendar year, it feels like a year, calendar month ago. And throughout that time, we've gotten more and more information every day. And what we realized a week ago or a week and a half ago when we began to put together our order is that we need law enforcement to have teeth to break up egregious violations. We know that the virus is going to spread in groups. We've all heard the story of the Florida beach people. We've known of situations even here in Utah where people, whether it was overt or just not thinking, we're not doing the right thing. So the order actually gives some clarity. And we did a great job, I think, of outlining some exemptions, and we had a very clear order, which I think is to the credit of a lot of people working on it. But additionally, it creates that ability for law enforcement to step in. And I think there's something to be said for an order versus a directive. We see most states in the nation now moving to orders, and there's a sense of urgency with the multiplier of the virus. And I really believe that getting everybody on the same page is the right way to go. The virus doesn't recognize the boundary at Point of the Mountain between the two counties, and we're a connected hospital system. So say you have a county, maybe it isn't Utah County, but it's another county that doesn't push back the numbers. We're seeing those cases flow into the hospital system right now. And then if we have a lag in certain counties compared to the populated area here or on the Wasatch Front, we're going to be in this a longer period of time. So it's sort of like my opinion is like, do it. Let's go harder. Let's restrict more, and let's get out of this sooner. So I would like a state order. I'm not the governor, but I'm doing what I can in my county, and I appreciate the flexibility. We had it anyway as county health authorities to move, but the governor has been clear that he wants to direct people. I hope that's enough. It is for many. It just may not be for everyone.
So the Salt Lake County, as I understand it, is doing case tracing.
We
right
do.
now. How does that work?
Well, now that you all are helping with testing, it helps even better because so in the early stage of the virus, we had clearly a handful of cases moving, and we were able to find a positive and move to the communities that that person has have contact with, their families, that had been to the store, their workplaces. Um, our ability to really impact that was limited by testing. And now that you and others in the state are moving towards more testing, we've actually expanded our case tracing. And, it's not perfect. It's sometimes, hard to find people, but clearly when you have a case breakout at an employer work site or whatever, it's easier to get the word out quickly and do some screening, put people on notice and put them in self quarantine or isolation. So that's the point. We do it the best we can. There's a lot to be done with this, but I'm amazed at how much work's been done by many, and we've been doing very well at our health department.
I just want to go again because you're calling for the governor to do a statewide stay-at-home order. We think that makes a lot of sense as well. What is the substantial difference between Utah County and Salt Lake County right now? Do we know?
Well,
like on the ground, just what's the difference?
Well, in terms of the order versus a directive, there is no compliance. There is no teeth. There is a state order actually that is not publicized that often. So there's a limitation in Utah County for groups of 10. And that's my understanding of the state order, as opposed to the directive. The governor continues to say, stay at home, no more group activities, let's be wise. It's a very similar message to the one that I'm sharing. It's just that in Utah County, there are no true requirements except for the existing order by the state, which is groups of 10, as I understand it.
Thank you so much, Mayor Wilson. Stay safe. We hope to check in with you again. Really appreciate you coming on. And I would encourage everyone to call that hotline for businesses. I'm going to give that number again. It's 385-468-4011. And moving over to the economic side, we're going to bring in our good friend, Corrine Clark, who is the chair of Silicon Slopes Commons. And she's also serving on the Utah Economic Response Task Force to give us an update on everything happening on the economic front. Corrine, how are you, my friend?
I am awesome. Thank you. And thank you for all the work that you're doing. I was making a list of all my task force nests today, and I feel like I'm Elastigirl with like a catcher's mitt, because I also serve on the GoEd board as the chair of the GoEd board. And I'm also on the state stimulus policy group. And part of this is just trying to braid everyone together to make sure that we're not wasting time doing things that are already being done by someone else. And you can see we have this really cool private-public partnership that most states would kill to have. And especially the way our governor and team have attacked this problem. We have a health track and we have an economic track. So happy to be working with all these groups. I'll give you just like a quick kind of an update from the teams. So Governor's Economic Task Force, they put out the Utah Leads Together plan. You can expect to see a 2.0 version of that plan probably by the end of the month, where we're rolling into stabilization for the state. It's probably the longest phase of the plan, and that's to just make sure that we're stabilized for all of our health issues and our economic issues. And the task force really is working with all the government agencies and with Silicon Slopes to make sure that we're doing everything that we can to help people get through this with the least amount of pain possible. You can see with the Test Utah partnership that's gone really well. And whenever anyone says, why is Silicon Slopes doing this? Well, because we can. And when we're trying to fight something like this, it really is all hands on deck. They have a task force call every Tuesday, Thursday, 4 o'clock. So if you feel like you want to have a town hall call every day at 4 o'clock, there's one for you. So thanks for giving me Friday back. I'm happy to have Friday.
Yeah, there's too many town halls.
Yeah.
We're saving everyone another one. We're not going only Monday and Wednesday from now on.
Awesome. So for GoEd, I'm the chair of GoEd. Val Hale and team announced a loan program that they launched last week. It's the Utah Leads Together, the bridge loan program for small businesses. They had 2,700 applications last week. 1,000 of them were in on time. They'll be reviewed this week, and then they'll get messaging back that they were awarded their loan, and those will go out at the end of this week. And then they'll open it up again for another round, and this time it will include nonprofits can participate this time. That started with 8 million in funding, and it went past 11 million. So I think there'll be additional funding for that. It's a way to get money in the hands of our small businesses. And then there's the Silicon Slopes Economic Task Force, which Jeremy chairs. I'm a proud member of that. And that team's really focused on making sure that we help companies stabilize and survive through this. And so trying to work really hard to get working capital in the hands of our small businesses. One of the things we're worried about is the very small business that doesn't have a big banking partnership, that doesn't have the sophistication to know how to work with the SBA. Also, Blake Marzitsky on that team is working with Holland and Hart to create a legal easy button for small businesses, for businesses that can't afford to have their own legal teams, to understand what is the federal stimulus and what do I need to pay attention to. And then we're working with folks like Ledger Guru, so Brittany and Steve's company, and other companies like Squire to help them understand how they can do, we can help them do a better job getting working capital in the hands of small businesses. Just a couple more. So the State Stimulus Policy Group, that's a fun group because we're working with Brad Wilson, who's the Speaker of the House, the Chair of the House, House Representatives, because we know that there's going to be a special session, and so we want to be prepared to affect policy that's going to help the underserved parts of our state. So things like the single proprietors, I call them the Venmo, the people that you pay through Venmo, who have their own businesses, that they believed us when we said everyone can be an entrepreneur. People, and this came from Jeremy, he's like, a way to think about it is their balance sheet is their checkbook. And so we want to make sure that that service part of our community understands what's available to them. And then also working with the state to understand, does every person in our state have access to high speed internet? Are we able to, the children in our state, the ones that were behind before all this, how do we make sure they're not even more behind? Early on in this process, Clint, you talked about, we have kids that are going to school from their house now. They're not getting food because they got that at school. They don't have laptops. They don't have access. If they have brothers and sisters, they have to share, an old piece of equipment. How do we make sure to get hardware in the hands of those kids so that they don't get behind? So things like that. And then the work that we're doing with Silicon Slopes, which I love working with this group. We have folks that are working on the next generation of our testing. So proud of what the team, Elkington and Mark and those guys have done. But imagine a world where we could test every person in the state of Utah for a rapid antibody test, meaning we could test to see if you carry the antibody. Because if we could test easily, quickly, meaning 3 drops of blood, that within 15 minutes you could see if you carried the antibodies, then we could send people back to work that already had the antibody for it. So since there is a subset of the population that is that doesn't have symptoms, they're asymptomatic, and they may have had the virus and not know it, we can actually send those people back to work.
Right. Once we get those tests, I think that, that's it. That's going to be a huge deal once we get that up and running. Corrine, stay on. I'm going to come back to you and loop you back in, but I want to go to Brock Blake, who is been on the front lines of these PPP loans through Lendio. Brock Blake is the CEO and founder of Lendio, and it's been a fascinating past 72 some odd hours since all this started rolling. So Brock, give us an update on where things stand.
Well, first of all, I just want to let you know I'm doing my best Clint Bentz impression here. I have my own.
Oh, yours is way better than mine.
I don't know about that.
Cool.
I really like yours, but I just want to add a little levity to the situation. There was no weekend this weekend. And wow, there's just so much going on with this small business lending, these PPP loans. Last time I was on here, I had a few people ask me questions around like, wait, who is Lendio and how does this, like, how are you aware of everything that's going on? So let me just give a little context. Lendio is the largest marketplace in the US for business loans. And so think of Lendio, you might go to Airbnb for vacation homes, or you might go to Expedia for hotels, you go to Yelp for restaurants, you go to Lendio for business loans. We have a few hundred financial institutions on one end, and then we have thousands of business owners. So we're right. The reason why I say that is because we're right in the middle of the storm on all this, working with not only the financial institutions on one side, but thousands of business owners on the other. I promise one of these times I'm going to bring good news, but I don't have good news yet. Today we were expecting a lot of loans to be able to fund, but we were hit again with more bad news. In fact, just got off the call with, and we have a few hundred banks that are trying to process these loans. The challenge is that the SBA site has come to a screeching halt. We had one bank tell us today they submitted an app this morning, and it took them 8 hours to get any response from the SBA on that. So let me just walk you through the process of how this works. When a business owner goes and applies at one of at a bank or a financial institution or through Lendio, what happens is that financial institution has to gather the full application, and then they use a technology called eTran. That eTran technology is the connection to the SBA. The SBA should get that document, and then they get a confirmation number back that allows them to say that was processed and you can move that forward. So unfortunately, there is this bottleneck of everything being processed to the SBA, and eTran is very, very old technology. So we have our 300 banks that we're working with have submitted tens of thousands of applications, and we're not yet aware of loans that have funded today across the U.S. It's very, very disappointing, so there's a lot at play here. So there's a few things that are happening. We're hearing from borrowers. So one, a lot of banks are actually choosing not to participate. We've onboarded a few hundred banks in the last week. 50% of them have chosen not to participate in funding the loans. They want to be a referral source. They want to offer our application technology to their customers, but they don't want to actually fund the loans. So that's really disappointing to hear. A lot of banks are only focusing on funding their own customers. And sometimes it's even a smaller group than that. They're not even funding their own, they're funding just customers that have received a loan, not even all of their deposit customers. And then there are another group of lenders that want to fund as many customers as they can get, but they are worried that, well, one, there's the backlog of the SBA that I talked about at the beginning, but two, they're also worried about the capital. The demand for capital is so high right now. They might have $100 million on their balance sheet, and they could go through that in a couple hours, and they need to be able to get replenished on that capital quickly. Fortunately, today, the Fed has announced that they're going to provide a way to replenish that capital with these financial institutions more efficiently, and that should help some of the capital flow more efficiently. But as of right now, there's a lot of applications. I mean, we at Lendio, we've processed we're nearing $10 billion of applications, but a significant backlog with processing those through the SBA as of right now.
Brock, quick question for you. Do the PPP loans require signatures, like physical signatures, or could applicants submit them through DocuSign?
Yeah, DocuSign works. Through our site, we have an online digital signature tool, and we will use DocuSign on the closing agreements as well.
Continuing on this topic, we have the World Trade Center President and CEO Miles Hansen, as well as the CEO of Ledger Gurus, Brittany Brown. Miles, you're leading up this effort from the Governor's Economic Task Force. Can you give us an update from your side?
Yeah, absolutely. So thanks to Brock for everything that Lendio is doing. A tremendous resource for all of us here in the state, and had a good coordinating call with him a little while ago. So there clearly are lots of challenges, which should not be a surprise to anybody who's ever dealt with the federal government whatsoever. What we are doing on the state side are a couple different things. One, we have confidence that over the next few days, Treasury and SBA, they're going to work out these kinks, get the E-Tran, their electronic system up and running, be able to purchase these loans off of banks' balance sheets, which then enable loans to provide more applications. And so we're continuing to really focus on making sure that every small business in the state, whether they've got 499 employees or it's a sole proprietorship and they're the only one, that they are engaging in this process because money is going to flow, even if it takes another week or so. And it's a significant opportunity for Utah companies. So we're doing that in a couple different ways. One, we're working hard to push distilled, accurate, clear information out to as many Utah businesses as possible. If you go to coronavirus.utah.gov/business, anybody can go on there and see not just the PPP or EIDL, but all the different federal programs and resources that can benefit companies very quickly, what they are, who is eligible, how you find out more. The other thing we've done, which is most significant, is actually a pretty cool Utah story, is we've stood up a rapid response team. So middle of last week, we recognized a lot of businesses have never dealt with this before. We need to have a team in place to hold their hand through the process. We put out a call for volunteers. We now have 51 volunteers from 15 different organizations. Just over the weekend and today, they've helped more than 600 Utah companies. And again, for anybody out there, if you have questions, if you need assistance, go to that coronavirus.utah.gov/business website. Right at the top, you will see a link where you can click to ask for assistance. Click the link, fill it out, explain what you need assistance with. And we have this team of volunteers that are trained up to plug in and assist. We've charged them to not just provide information. That's insufficient. They need to solve problems and provide solutions to our companies. And so each of these 600 businesses we've helped, there's multiple interactions back and forth with the companies to help them out. We've seen that volume increase significantly just in the past 36 hours. We expect it will continue to grow. And so we have more volunteers on deck. At a certain point, if you or anybody in your organization would be interested in volunteering for the rapid response team, please reach out through the website. We'd love to get you trained up because we want to have every small business in the state get an application and participate in these programs. And to do that, we're going to have a very, very large team helping people through every step along the way. The last thing very quickly that we are doing is we're working with lenders here in the state of Utah to help address some of the challenges that Brock identified. Specifically, banks prioritizing their lending customers or their customers, and that makes a lot of sense. We're working to try to figure out what can we do to help address some of the concerns and obstacles to enable them to open up for any Utah small business. And for those Utah small businesses that don't have a lender or whose lender is not participating in the PPP program, they're concerned that they're going to be left out in the cold because they can't get access to a lender. We want to hear from them through the rapid response team so we can get their information. And as we find banks and lenders here in the state who can help them out, we'll take that group and we'll connect them with the lenders. And we will do everything we need to do to make sure that no Utah business is left out in the cold on these programs, because they are significant and it's what's going to help us maintain momentum in our economy. So when we come out on the other end of this thing, we're ready to bounce back very, very strong.
Thanks, Miles. And to be clear to everyone watching, it's coronavirus.utah.gov/business. Brittany, you've been working on this around the clock as well with Ledger Gurus, which is an incredible company here in the state of Utah that I'd recommend everybody work with, and along with Lendio and also all the great work that Miles is doing on the task force in the World Trade Center. Brittany, what advice do you have? What do you want to add here?
Yeah, thanks, Clint. So, when we're working with our clients, we've basically been telling them there's a couple hurdles they have to cross, whether we're guiding them through that, whether the organization Miles just talked about is guiding them, whether Lendio is guiding them. There's a couple hurdles that they need to figure out how to cross. The first one is they need to find an organization, a lending organization that is actually prepared to do this for them, whether it's a organization that they already have a current banking relationship with. That's the best place to start, because like Miles said, most banks are prioritizing people that they already have an existing relationship with. So if you already have that in place, you need to reach out and you need to get in communication with your banker right away. If you don't, you need to figure out which banks are working with clients that they don't always have existing relationships with. And the second thing is you need to be ready to move and move quickly when the pieces are in place. So I have high hopes also that what Miles and Brock said is true, that this is going to, the bottlenecks are going to be resolved, the money is going to start flowing, the issues are going to be taken care of. And when that happens, basically the documentation and the things that you need to be prepared with are not, the list is not that extensive, but what they are requiring, you need to be ready with. And basically that is you need to be ready to validate and corroborate the loan amounts based on your payroll activity, and you need to have your documentation in place. So if you can establish a relationship, whether you're going through a company like Lendio, whether you already have a relationship with an existing bank, establish the relationship you're going to move forward on, get your documentation ducks in a row so that when you're ready to pull the trigger, everything is in place and ready to go.
We have a question, and I saw that you answered it, Miles, but I want to do it for the broadcast as well, from the great Sonny Washington, who is the CEO of Because Learning, one of the greatest companies and greatest entrepreneurs in the entire state of Utah. She is asking, if you only have 1099 employees, I understand applying for PPP has to be done individually, and the application is open on April 10th. Has that changed? Brock or Brittany, do you want to take that?
So there's been a lot of discussion on this back and forth. The for sure straightforward answer is that 1099 contractors are technically their own businesses and they can apply starting on April 10th. Can that be expedited by having the company that they work with apply for them? I'm actually going to throw that one over to Brock. He probably has a better idea on that than I do.
They can include the technicality we've heard on this is that they can include the individual as their number of employees, but not their income for their payroll amount. So because they don't want that to be double counted. So no, it needs to be wait until Friday, the 10th for the 1099 contractors to apply.
And Brock, as we wrap up here, I want to give you a second to talk about banks and whether their willingness to lend and kind of where banks stand currently.
Yeah, I thanks, Clint. I want to make sure that it doesn't come across like I'm beating up the banks. These financial institutions have a desire and an appetite to lend. They are working through some challenges around the details of documenting these loans, making sure they have capital to fund the loans. And so I think they're prioritizing certain customers at certain times until they feel like they can answer those questions. And so this is the largest stimulus package in the history of the U.S. and it's moving very, very quickly. Everyone's on pins and needles waiting for updates and guidelines from the SBA and Treasury. They made an announcement today that I think will help the banks with the capital requirements. And it's this, we're in this difficult challenge because business, what we want to say is, and the banks want to say, and the SBA wants to say is be patient, because everyone's moving as fast as we possibly can to process these. But we don't have time at the same time. We've got business owners that every single day it's negatively affecting their business. And so we are urgently working with these financial institutions and the SBA to try and process loans as quickly as possible. We are the advocate for the business owner in this case. And hopefully we see capital start flowing either later this evening or in the morning.
Quick question for you, Brock. If we are a solo entrepreneur with no employees, is Lendio able to help us find which loans may be available?
Yeah, no question. Again, those applications will be available on Friday, the 10th.
All right, I just want to recap some of the things that we went over here real quick because we're out of time. We're going to do this again on Wednesday at 4 p.m. At testutah.com, we did over 51,000 assessments. Let's get over 100,000 in the next 72 hours. I challenge everyone to share and do the Test Utah Challenge on social media. It's hashtag Test Utah Challenge. Make sure you check that out. Let's get over 100,000 assessments within the next 72 hours. We've tested over 1,500 people. Results have been given for over 700 people. We're opening 2 locations in South Ogden and Heber. We're trying to get one in the airport and opening 10 to 15 to 20 over the next little bit. I also want to encourage everyone to buy the One Utah t-shirt. You can do that at slopeserves.com. All of that money goes directly to the Slopes Serves Fund, which all of that money goes to fighting COVID-19 here in the state of Utah. Thank you all so much. We will talk to you Wednesday at 4 p.m.